Hey listeners, welcome to episode 11 of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. This is Tiny here. Just a quick note before we get started. As always, you can reach us. Send us an email at ovpodcast@gmail.com. You can find all three of us on Twitter, at Obsessive Viewer, at Obsessive Tiny, and at I Am Mike White. And you can always go over to the website, obsessiveviewer.com. We've got tons of content on there. We love getting all the comments and discussions on all the different articles and everything. So chances are, if you're a movie or TV buff, there's something on there for you. So check it out. In today's episode, we talked about the film Elysium. All three of us went and saw it, and interestingly enough, we all had different opinions on it. One of us kind of liked it, one of us really liked it, and the other didn't like it so much. So that's kind of different. We haven't really had that happen yet. So I hope you guys like that. After that, Matt had a pretty cool idea. We went over to Yahoo Answers, and he picked out, I think, 5 or 6 questions or so, and we just answered the questions, basically. And, of course, they all had to do with film and television. And we just kind of, got into discussions about the topics that were in the questions. It was fun. We'll probably do it again. I hope you guys like it. You can always let us know if you did or if you didn't. That's about it for today. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy.
We're talking about Elysium. When did everybody see Elysium? When did you guys see Elysium?
I saw it was it last week? I think.
Yeah,
I don't even remember.
I think it was last Friday, opening day. Was it opening day?
Yeah, it was opening day. Yeah.
So you guys saw it opening day. I saw it. So you guys saw it the 9th, I guess.
Yeah.
I saw it on the 14th.
Okay.
So I saw it that Wednesday after, and we usually. This is funny because we usually talk immediately about these kinds of things, but now that we do the podcast, we have this weird habit of
keeping everyone in the dark.
Yeah, we won't say a word to each other about how we felt about a movie. Oh, save it for the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I've in the past, I've tried to kind of keep you kind of completely in the dark, with Man of Steel. I was like, okay, I'm not going to say a word about it. I'm not going to give you my reaction. We're going to record it, and it'll be that. But I don't know if you saw my tweets or anything, but I had a strong opinion of this movie.
Your tweets about Elysium?
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw them or not. So I'm not sure if you know how I feel about it.
Oh, I don't know that. I haven't been on Twitter in a couple of days. It's been a really busy back-to-school week.
Oh, that makes sense.
It sucks.
Okay.
Right.
So how about this? Tiny, why don't you start us off with what you thought of Elysium?
Okay.
I guess.
I really liked it a lot. The effects were as good as they get. They were really good. I'll start out with asking a question because this almost took me out of the film. Did you guys remember there being an explanation for kind of counteracting the exposure to radiation so that he wouldn't so that he would be able to function, I guess?
I think he was still hurting from it. It's just that the exoskeleton made him able to walk.
I think that's Didn't Spider give him some pills or something?
No, the doctor.
Or the doctors gave him the pills.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay, well, that is the gravest offense in the movie, in my opinion. Okay, it took me out of the movie a little bit because my mom is a nurse, and I remember when I was a kid, we watched a movie called The China Syndrome, which isn't. It's an okay movie. It was kind of famous in the 70s, but it's about a nuclear meltdown. And I asked my mom, what happens when you're exposed to radiation? And she told me about it, and it kind of freaked me out. And so it's always in my mind, whenever there's exposure to radiation in any movie or anything, I always think about it, and I feel like I know a little bit about it. And just, it really irked me that he was exposed to a lethal dose of radiation in Elysium, and it was supposed to kill him in 5 days. But he's just, fine, just running around and fighting people and shooting guns and flying spaceships and stuff like that.
Well, let me say, I agree with you on the fact that they missed that, but for me, that is one of many problems.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest one, because it's what happens with what radiation does is it literally alters your cellular makeup of your body. It
Right.
works on a molecular
Like it gives you
level.
spider powers, right?
Exactly. Yes, but it would literally make it so it takes your lung and it's no longer a lung, or it takes one of the ways that people die from radiation most commonly is they die of sepsis, which is basically poisoning because your kidneys shut down and your body slowly poisons itself. That's one of the ways that people usually die from radiation. It takes like 2-3 days, and usually it depends on how high the level of radiation is that you're exposed to, how long you're exposed to it for. There's all these varying factors, but it seems like if it's enough to kill him in 5 days, he should have been absolutely incapacitated.
Totally.
And I feel like the exoskeleton thing just would not have been able to help him to that unless it had some way of extracting radiation from your body.
Well, I'll say I think the pills are their way of taking care of that. It's in the future where they can sit in a bed and heal themselves of everything and essentially live hundreds of years. So I can buy that the pills are good enough, I guess.
That's a good point, Mike. And I mean, granted, it's a different. Yeah, Elysium has the pods and everything, and
right.
But I don't know. I guess it's just a stretch of the your suspension of disbelief is kind of tested in this movie a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tiny, we'll get to details in a minute. You liked it, Matt. What'd you think?
I loved it. It was in. This is the tail end of a summer with kind of forgettable movies, I would say. Man of Steel, Pacific Rim. Yeah, those movies that we've reviewed on the podcast before. I felt like this was just a breath of fresh air, I guess. And
that's not to say there haven't been great ones.
Oh yeah, there have been some good movies. There's been some very good movies.
This podcast kind of started post Star Trek Into Darkness.
It kind of did, yeah.
Which was
it
great,
definitely did.
Which I loved. Loved. So,
me too. You can read our triple review of it on obsessiveviewer.com. But
go ahead though. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's cool. But I don't know. I just really liked it. I think part of that may have been that I was just very amped about seeing another Neil Blomkamp movie because I loved District 9. I thought that was a great movie. And I just thought it was a really good movie. I thought like Tiny said, the visuals were very good. The action was great. I was absorbed in the world, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mike, what did you think?
I'm also a big District 9 fan and Neil Blomkamp.
Right.
It's a classic already.
Oh yeah.
District 9 is. And there were so many problems I had with this movie, I couldn't help but in the end overwhelmingly feeling disappointed.
Oh, that's too bad.
It was too bad. I was really bummed. Now there's a lot to like. The guns were cool, which is kind of a holdover feature from District 9.
Yeah.
I thought the cinematography was really cool. I really liked some of the camera choices. It got shaky at times, and the guys I was seeing it with said, "Oh, I might throw up," and I was like, "Well, it's not that bad." I did like there was a scene, the scene toward the end, where Matt Damon's character and Sharlto Copley's character are having their duking it out, you know, and Matt Damon throws like a right jab and then a left hook, and as he throws the hook, the camera swings around his shoulders.
Yes.
That was really cool.
That was a very cool effect,
and I like
that.
I've never felt the weight of a punch so much than in that camera angle.
Yes,
and I liked a lot of it, but I had a lot of problems. Do you want me to list them?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Probably the greatest offense for me was Jodie Foster's accent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was she? I've read that she was doing South African. I've read that she was making up some new 2154 bourgeois 1% accent. I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it felt like, you know how she kind of has that southern drawl where it's kind of like Mr. Lecter. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. It almost seemed like she was just trying to cover that up and didn't.
Yeah. And the biggest part about it was completely unnecessary.
Absolutely.
It served no purpose.
It really didn't. She didn't have they didn't make a note that she was any particular nationality or anything like that. It was just it was a very strange choice. Yeah.
I'll keep going.
Okay.
I was also really excited about the idea of the exoskeleton, and it wasn't as much a feature or a focal point of the movie as I thought it was going to be.
It really wasn't. It wasn't. I will say it was not as prominent as the gun, the weaponry, and general gun and transformation of Vicus in District 9.
Yes, exactly. And then the other, there's several. There's more. I thought the guy who played Spider was too over the top. He was really not good. Like, and it was like borderline. I'm trying not to be xenophobic, and because I couldn't understand his accent at times, but other times I think he was just acting too hard.
Yes, I agree completely.
Particularly in the beginning.
Yeah, he was a little over the top, I would say. I didn't really have a problem with him, but I mean, maybe now that you brought it up, I'll have a problem when I see it again. Yeah. Which I honestly I could see myself seeing again at a matinee. And
then finally, my biggest. Okay, there's two big problems left. two of the biggest problems aside from Jodie Foster's accent. One that really irked me was the hippo and the meerkat story. It was way too contrived, way too easy. Way too easy. I like that was one of my biggest problems with it was that the scene where she tells it was just like that. It's like, okay, they could have figured out a different way to. I couldn't watch. I was like, she's telling him this story, really?
I was just like, okay, I get it. Like at the end, I was like, okay, it came into play later, or whatever, and it was like all emotional, but. Like he could have had like an extra scene or two to build the foundation of the relationship with the kid,
right?
And then do the story and then have it do that.
Totally.
It felt so inorganic the way it was filmed.
It seemed like she was asking him in telling the story, asking him to pity her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the hippo would let the meerkat sit on his shoulders.
Well, granted, she had leukemia and
she
was dying.
She did. She's probably grasping at straws. You're right. I don't know.
Plus, about that scene, if I remember correctly, time was of the essence. Yeah. So it's like I'm in this huge rush. I'll stop to listen to this 6-year-old telling me a story that totally doesn't matter at all.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then the end, which I can't decide if I like it or I don't. But how many pods did they have, or do they have, and how will this resolution not create issues?
That's a good question. That's actually a really good question, because it seemed like every resident of Elysium kind of had their own pod, but
it's essentially communism, which doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right?
And now with spoiler alert, everybody. Okay, when I mean, all of Earth is going to Elysium now, and it's like, the ships had the pods in them, didn't they?
Yes, they came down to Earth.
Okay,
right.
Well, still, I mean, I don't know if they have all of those pods and they have an infinite amount of resources to cater to the Earth population. What's the point of them having Elysium in the first place?
If they had the enough pods,
if they have
that they could have done that,
if they have enough immediate resources, I mean, because we saw the ship and it had just a bunch of pods in it, and that's supposed to signify that there's infinite sources of it or whatever.
Right.
So what's the point of that, rather than just be a jerk and be like, oh yeah, Earth smells, I'm not going to go down to Earth.
Well, that is the point.
Yeah,
I get. That is what Blomkamp is saying, is that the 1% doesn't care about the other 99%.
Okay, yeah, I can get on board with that.
That I get. However, it's weird to root for the heroes at the end, Blomkamp as well, when he says, let's just give everything to everyone, because that doesn't always work.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a weird. You have to think. How many people they're gonna fight for who gets to get into the med pods. People are gonna start living forever, so the world's gonna be overpopulated.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like as much of a solution as the happy ending and the smiles would suggest.
Right, Tiny. What do you think?
I was going to say this is kind of a continuation of Matt's point, but I didn't get the motivation for the people on Elysium withholding the medical pods from the people on Earth, because the reason is because they still depend on the people of Earth to build their robots, and I assume they get some resources from Earth. So if you depend on those people, how can you just it doesn't make sense that they would withhold such a simple technology that literally means everything because it can save lives. Why?
You're right. What's
the point of withholding that? Just send 5 or 6 pods down there. And I mean, it's not. Obviously, people are still going to die, but at least the pods will be there, and they could have a lottery system or a waiting list to use the pods. It just did not make sense that they would be that withholding. It didn't feel like the classism, if you will, that exists in the film would be so egregious that they would just let these people die that they depend on. That bothered me.
That's a good point.
I agree, and it bothers me too. I think it's a little extreme.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't think it was an accident on Blomkamp's part. I think growing up in South Africa, he just feels that way about the 1%.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
True.
Like he actually thinks that it's that awful.
Right. Right.
And if you look at the distribution of wealth just in the United States, it's sickening. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. But you get the Billionaires Club who are donating significant chunks of their fortune. So you would think people like Stephen Hawking would be on Elysium and sending med bays to Earth.
Right.
Exactly.
So I'm saying I agree with you.
Yeah.
But it's I don't think it's an accident on Blomkamp's part.
Right.
That's a good point. I kind of just completely overlooked the fact that he grew up in South Africa.
Right.
He kind of was in that it brings me to my kind of next point, if you guys don't mind.
Sure.
I think it may have been. I don't know if it was on the podcast or just in general conversation, but a while ago, Tiny, you mentioned that you don't feel like Blomkamp has a particular tone or a style, I guess.
I said yet. I don't think he's quite there yet. I feel like he's a young a young Ridley Scott. That's kind of what I feel like.
Yeah, and I was going to say that it's interesting to see his growth as a filmmaker for these past 2 films, because they're very similar in style and tone and kind of their general message and story, I guess. They're both kind of there's a dichotomy in Elysium that it shows this utopian world and this dystopian horrible existence. And it's just that juxtaposition is just really well distributed or well established in the movie. I felt like there was a really good pacing to it of showing each side of it and everything. And then with District 9, it was just a very grimy and dirty kind of world that was infused with a lot of alien technology and a lot of sci-fi stuff. I just think he's got a really cool style that it's going to be interesting to see where he goes next.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it'll be a step back because Elysium didn't make any money.
It didn't? I didn't even catch.
It made very little. It will probably, but not definitely, match District 9, which was on a shoestring budget.
That's true. Yeah. Oh man,
that's too bad.
Yeah.
It
plummeted. It plummeted something like 65% this weekend.
Wow.
Jeez, that's not good.
Yep.
No,
it's not. Let me say that at the beginning when I talked about, my first impression was that I didn't like the movie. I was disappointed.
Right.
I would like to see more from Neil Blomkamp.
Oh yeah.
And I was entertained enough to say that he has a bright future.
And it's
And
interesting.
Charlton Copley even more.
Oh my! We'll get into him.
Okay.
Talking about him in a moment. But
Okay.
he, the Neil Blomkamp, and it might be. It sucks that it didn't make money because I think that, like I said, this summer's been kind of dry, and that was one of the better movies I've seen this summer. But I think it would just. I think maybe it'd do him some good to kind of scale back. Because he could kind of, like I said, District 9 and Elysium were both kind of similar, both in storytelling and style, that maybe it'd be interesting for him to try something different. But he did actually sell a movie. It's called Chappie. Have you guys heard about this?
I have.
No.
It's he wrote the script with Terry Tatchell. I don't know who that is, but I'm reading it off of Deadline.com. But it's about a robot imbued with artificial intelligence who's stolen by two local gangsters who want to use him for their own nefarious purposes. I can't pronounce his name. Another thing where I'm going to have a horrible pronunciation episode. But Charlton Copley, he voices the robot.
Okay.
So,
that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, so it should be interesting. It sounds like another sounds kind of like another story of people having something.
The haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, I
see what you're saying.
Yeah, like
people having something. Yeah,
yeah, and needing to get it back from one place to another or something like that. But yeah,
it'll be interesting.
I know Matt mentioned the juxtaposition of the dystopia and the utopia was really good, and I agree. But I think I liked that the emphasis was on the dystopic factor of it. I thought it was probably one of the best depictions of a dystopic future that I've seen. Probably the best since like Children of Men. I would say just because, and I liked the realism of the issues that caused it to be a dystopia, like overpopulation and lack of resources and stuff like that. Because that's pretty realistic. By 2154, we will be hugely overpopulated unless something drastic happens.
Right.
And just like especially the scene in the hospital where. After he gets his arm broken, I think, where Matt Damon gets his arm broken, and he goes there. It was disturbing to see how overcrowded it was and how little they could do for people, and there was no charm to it. There was no gloss to it. It was just so people were screaming. It was almost like watching a triage. It was like looking at a triage of a battlefield.
That's
it was
a good
really
point.
disturbing.
Two things.
So I love that.
Two things. One of my favorite depictions of the future is an Idiocracy, because I think that's incredibly likely.
Yeah.
And the other thing, which is actual, has to do with the movie. When I was first watching the movie and he's like walking around, and they play like the dubstep / industrial music. It's always tough. I mean, of course, it's impossible to predict what music they'll be listening to in 140 years or whatever. Right. But it's always like a variation of what's popular now. So my first instinct was, man, this isn't that futuristic. But then I thought about it, and I really loved the idea that the people of Earth have been largely left alone by investors and the people with money because they all went to Elysium. You know what I mean? So the fact that I thought it hadn't advanced enough in 140 years was actually because sometime in our near future, the people of Elysium left. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, that's a good point, and it stunts the growth of culture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
What did you guys think of Matt Damon's character, Max? Did you guys like him? Did you guys think he developed well?
I think he did. I think he did well enough. Matt Damon did a good job portraying him, but I think the standout was the guy from District 9. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name.
I think it's just Charlton.
Charlton?
Like,
okay.
You like mix the L and the T.
Copley, yeah. Copley. Charlton Copley. Matt Damon was kind of overshadowed by him, I think.
Yeah,
Tiny, what did you think of Matt Damon?
I liked him. I thought he he was better developed than a lot of action heroes are.
That's true.
And I liked his attitudes. Kind of, they were appropriate because at first he was very. It's like the first few scenes before he gets sick or whatever, he was, like clearly a person who's trying to change himself. He's trying to get better.
Yeah.
And so he was sarcastic when it was appropriate, and times where he could have gotten really angry, he just kind of threw a joke in there to sort of, especially like the part with his parole officer and stuff.
Right.
Officer in quotes. But I like that part. And then once he gets sick, he's just all business from there, and that makes sense. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just was left wanting. I felt like there could have been more with him. I guess it is because I agree that he was overshadowed by Kruger.
Yeah, and I mean, it was funny because I knew that he was playing Kruger in this movie, and I loved him in District 9, and it's so nice to see him play such a different role, because I don't think I've seen him in really anything else.
Yeah,
but it was so nice to see him do that complete 180 from his character in District 9, and he did it to the point where I almost forgot that he was in District 9. Like at the beginning, I was like, "Oh yeah, he is playing that. That's right."
Yeah.
And that's always a nice thing to see.
I was because I knew going in that he was in it. I was like the only one amongst my friends. Maybe I know a couple people who didn't even know. Like halfway through, they're like, "Is that the District 9 guy?" I was like, yeah, it was. He. I went into the movie completely blind, so I avoided spoilers, avoided as many trailers as I could. I was under the impression that he was a good guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it was kind of cool to see how evil he would become.
Interesting. I had a slight problem with the fact that he was so obnoxious and quippy. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, but it was just. I think I would have preferred a more serious tone from the character as opposed to being so one-liner-ish. But he was still really great, and I loved his. This is going to sound maybe a little weird, but I loved his motivation, because so many times you get a character like that who's essentially just an extension of the true villain, which the true villain is Jodie Foster.
Right.
You get a character that's like that, and they're just like a mercenary or something, and they're just doing it for money or whatever. And it's just like okay, that technically makes sense, but it just doesn't seem like enough for them to die for. You know what I mean?
Right. But in the end.
Yeah, you find out that he wants control of Elysium.
Right.
He has the potential to take control of Elysium.
Yeah.
That's a huge motivating factor. I loved it. I thought that was one of the better aspects of the film, in my opinion.
He kind of becomes the main villain.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He becomes the more important of the two, and he was all along, and we didn't know that.
Right, and I loved his scenes with Alice Braga. I thought that it was just really disturbing the way that he spoke to her and was really like kind of close with her and all that. It was just really disturbing.
See, again, I thought those lines, that interaction would have been a lot better if he was a more serious character as opposed to. It still had an effect. I just think it would have been so much better if he would have been a little more serious and not so Charlton Copley-ish. I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was Charlton Copley-ish. He's kind of like that as Vicus.
Yeah.
He is.
Like
he's
even in
goofy.
great distress, he was kind of goofy.
Yeah,
Right.
he was likable, and it was. I don't know the way I see. I agree that he was a little too quippy and like not serious enough, but because it did kind of almost jump into like kind of Spider-Man villain territory. But I was still along for the ride. I was hooked in, and I was good to go.
Yeah,
I still really liked it.
Cool. I just thought of some other plot holes. And they have mostly to do with Spider. The first one is when Matt Damon's character, figures out, or I guess Spider figures out what is on the information, or what the information is that is in his brain. And then he could they could use that information, download it to give everything to everyone, communism style.
Right.
And so Matt Damon, threatens whatever. He says, okay, I'm going up, and they try to stop him. And a couple of guys come out with guns to shoot Matt Damon, right? And Matt Damon fights a couple of them off, but Spider's like, stop, don't shoot him. Why? I understand don't shoot him in the head, right? Which is what we're to believe. Don't shoot him, in parentheses, in the head, because that'll kill him, and of course the thing doesn't work. But if you shoot him in both legs, he can't move, and you can steal the information in his head. That was a contrivance.
Well, I would say that given how kind of dirty and grimy that world is, I mean, any flesh wound or whatever would get. I mean, maybe the chance, it's a stretch, but maybe the chance for infection would be too high or whatever.
So he would die of infection sooner than 5 days?
No, but I mean, he would be incapacitated. Or I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know.
I don't remember that scene too specifically. I'm not. I get what you're saying. I can't really argue against it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's just that he knew that he had him. There was no need to injure him because he was just there. He was surrounded.
Right, but he was leaving. Matt Damon was leaving the room, so
I
they were
don't
trying
really
to
stop
him from going up to Elysium.
Okay.
Right, and so if he went up to Elysium, then they wouldn't, because he wanted to save himself. So he wouldn't be able to use it. And so they should have just shot him in the leg. I thought
Fair enough.
Easy enough to just shoot him in the leg. And the other thing is nobody but the Minister of Defense, Secretary of Defense, Jodie Foster, is she the only one? Well, I guess if she's a Secretary of Defense, she is the only one watching people come in, because Matt Damon gets in, but he is on the ship with Kruger. That's fine. She wants him in, but then Spider just waltzes in, no problem, unimpeded at all.
I think that was because they were the security was a little distracted.
Okay.
I think that's how they got around that.
Okay.
Right.
That's fine, I guess. That's an excuse, I guess. It's a pretty poor defense system.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just follow a ship that's supposed to be there, and you'll be fine.
And plus, it seemed weird that you could just fly a ship right into the middle of Elysium, just it just seemed there was no ceiling. It was there was no. It was just like the regular sky. You just kind of slide in. It was weird.
Right.
It looked really cool. I'll give him that.
Yeah.
It did.
Awesome.
It did. I agree.
I want
that.
to say that I mentioned this to Tiny, and I know Mike. I know you haven't watched 2001, but I just the second that I saw Elysium, I was like, I love it. I loved the visual style of it. It very much reminded me of the I think it was the space station in 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, not just sci-fi, just all around. And I just loved the look of it and how it kind of pays homage to one of my favorite movies, and how it was just really clean, and the special effects were really, there was a lot of money spent on the visual effects for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yep.
So
let's talk about the guns.
Yeah.
I love those guns, man. The one that obliterates the robot in one of the first battle scenes was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. That was one thing that I kind of, in that scene, that kind of heist scene or whatever with William Fichtner,
which was good.
It was cool.
That
it
was a
very
highlight
cool
for me.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
But there was a scene where I think Matt Damon shoots a gun and then he just throws it away, and I don't know, that's something that bugs me. I don't remember the specifics of it. He may have just not had any use for it anymore, but it's I'd be like a gun hoarder in those kind of action movie scenarios, because I mean, I don't know.
I also like when Kruger. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the what was more impressive about it was it was actually the ammunition that was so cool.
Yes, right.
I kind of know a lot about guns, and the
Right.
scene you're talking about is he's just shooting a regular AK-47 essentially with a couple of cool accessories on it, but it's the ammunition that was so cool. That's what which makes so much sense.
I know nothing about guns, so
okay.
Yeah.
Which that makes so much sense to me. That's what I loved about the depiction of technology in the film, is that a lot of it is old technology from our era that just has these little like band-aids of these little band-aids of technology, technological advancement.
Right.
It's such a realistic thing for a dystopic future.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And I want to go on record and say I know a little bit about guns here and there, but I can never own a gun because I jump and blink at loud noises.
Yeah.
And I blink. Like whenever I hear something, I just blink really hard, and it's not really good for a gun owner, I don't think.
No. I liked the gun or the ammunition, I guess, that Kruger had that stuck to the victims. Like the home
that was
things
cool.
that stuck and then obliterated them.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And like limbs were flying. That was really cool.
So cool.
Were you guys okay? I loved the scene where Kruger's face blows off. That was awesome. I loved the violence in the movie. Were you guys okay that it was so easy for him to that he still had brain function? Were you guys okay with that? That he could regenerate?
I think so.
I didn't have any problems with it.
I thought it was really fantastical, but I thought it was...
Yeah.
It made sense because his brain seemed pretty intact, but, like if his head was completely gone, that's ridiculous.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I think it was just... Yeah, his face looked really caved in and everything, but that was his face. Like, I think his brain was pretty... This is getting kind of gross here, but I think his brain was primarily intact, so that's why I think it was okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I bought it.
I agree.
Okay.
I definitely bought into it, too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was pretty, like you said, fantastical. And at first I was like, what? And then I said, well, his brain functions are still there. So I was like, all right, I'll go with it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I had some issues with the movie, but I still enjoyed it. It would have been hard to not enjoy, I think.
Yeah, me too. And I want to mention that just real quick as a tangent. I wanted to, as soon as I finished watching it, I was really pumped up because I was like, I really like this movie. So I was like, I'm going to go home and I want to watch District 9. Mm-hmm. But then I realized that my PS3 had messed up. So my Blu-ray player was dead and I didn't have a digital copy of it. Mm-hmm. And I was just annoyed, so I haven't gotten around to it. I have planned to write a double feature for Elysium and District 9. I just haven't gotten a chance to do it. I bought a new PS3, so I'll be fine. So don't worry, guys. You'll see it soon, and maybe by the time this goes up. But
okay,
yeah,
that'll be good.
Yeah, and I'll just throw in real quick at the end. Alice Braga is so gorgeous.
Oh man, I just looked at her IMDb page, and I couldn't remember anything that I saw her in. But she was in like City of God, which is I need to watch it again. Actually, it's one of my favorite movies. I think it's like is it Brazilian?
Brazilian, yeah. She's
Brazilian.
She's Brazilian,
yeah. That movie is just it's one of my favorite movies.
She doesn't do anything for me.
Really?
Yeah, she's okay.
Interesting.
I think she reminds me of Michelle Rodriguez, who I despise.
Oh yeah.
Well, Michelle Rodriguez is she's like butch practically because she's so action hero-y and she's beyond tomboyish, but Alice Braga is still like really nice and she has feminine quality to her, I guess.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
She was in that Red Belt movie you guys were
She was in Red Belt.
Yeah. And she looked amazing in that. And she was in the first thing I think I saw her in other than City of God was I Am Legend.
Yeah, she was in that too.
Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
I don't know.
I know you're a huge fan of that movie, Tiny.
Yeah. Well, since Mike doesn't like her, I call dibs.
She's all yours. What's that? Did you say he's a huge fan of I Am Legend?
Yeah.
Oh, I love I Am Legend.
Do you really?
I love it so much. I think it's almost the perfect post-apocalyptic film, in my opinion.
Now, do you know what they did to the end of it? Like, do you know all of that stuff?
No.
Oh. Okay, so you're talking about the Will Smith I Am Legend movie.
Yes, yeah, the Will Smith one.
Yes. And you're not being ironic at all. You really like it.
No, seriously, I love it. Did you not like it?
Okay, that's fine. No,
I know that this wasn't your intention, but that sounded so condescending.
I know it does. I'm sorry.
And you're not being ironic about this.
I know it does. I know. A lot of people don't like that movie though.
Yeah, I love it. I really do. I think it is pretty much the perfect post-apocalyptic film.
Really? Yeah, there's a lot I don't like about it. I don't like the dog. I don't like that the dog is there just for the emotional thing. But what they do at the end is that in both the Omega Man, which is the first film adaptation of the story I Am Legend,
Right. Yeah.
and the story I Am Legend. The end is that he realizes that the zombies or whatever are aware and are just the next evolution of humanity, right? So it's not that he is the legend that saves our humanity. It's he is the nightmare legend that they speak of when they communicate together, because he is this guy that is killing the next evolution of humanity. So like the revelation at the end is that all these they breathe, they have brain patterns, they know what they're doing. I'm killing these people, and you learn something else completely at the end of the actual thing. But of course, they make the happy.
Right.
We're gonna cure everybody.
Okay, that's okay. I have seen I saw the Charlton Heston one too, the Omega Man. But it was so long ago I didn't really remember it that much. But I will say this is going on a tangent here, but the dog had to be in the movie because otherwise there's no interaction whatsoever.
He's Wilson.
Exactly.
He's Wilson.
Yeah.
He's Wilson. Yeah, the volleyball from Castaway.
Right. You're right.
I agree with that. So, but I think in the Omega Man, he's by himself. Charlton Heston's by himself, but they bring in the female character much earlier in the film, so he has someone to interact with, and plus in the Omega Man, the zombie things or whatever talked to each other.
Yes.
They actually had speech, so I think you had to have the dog there. Plus, it was a cheap way to tug at heartstrings, but I still loved it.
Yeah. Well, I didn't mean to be so condescending. I love some crappy movies, so I apologize.
It just sounded like
it did. I know.
Yeah, I know your intention.
Admittedly, it did.
I've never read,
but
the book.
You never know.
I didn't realize that was the ending was that whole evolutionary aspect. I
really like that.
That's very cool. Yeah, that would have been neat. To see.
The actual version.
Right.
Yeah. So people, fans cry foul at the movie because of that, because just the human hero aspect of it.
Well, that's fair.
Okay.
I get that.
But I do like the look of the future. I agree. I think the post-apocalyptic aspect of the movie is well done.
I need to watch it again. I borrowed it from Tiny for the longest time, and then I finally watched it, and I really liked it. I just need to watch it again.
Yeah. It didn't. I feel like I've seen it 3 times, and it hasn't. I keep trying to like it because I really do love Will Smith.
Yeah, he's great.
Oh yeah.
But
all right. Well, do you guys have any parting thoughts on Elysium or I Am Legend? I guess before we move on.
Well, Tiny, you started. You want to start your final thoughts?
Just that I think it's definitely, everybody should see it, definitely. I think because I think some people might have a different connection to it. I did like it. I thought it was a great way to spend 2 hours. But it had some glaring issues that kind of got to me a little bit, but it didn't completely take me out of the film. So
okay,
I'm looking forward to Neil Blomkamp's future.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mike, how about you?
Very few movies exist that have no plot issues or little things that you have to get over to enjoy.
Right.
So I understand that it's going to happen. There's going to be things in all of my favorite movies that are, you just have to ignore. This movie, I couldn't ignore them, and I really wanted to because I really liked the idea. I really liked the way the movie looked. I love Matt Damon. I loved the effects, the special effects in the movie. I thought it was well done. And again, I like the idea of the story, but there were just the negative things about it took me out of the movie so far that by the end of it, I didn't care about Matt Damon's character, and I just couldn't say that I enjoyed the movie.
Okay, fair enough. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. Pending a second viewing, it might be one of my favorite movies of the year, I would say.
Okay.
But like I said, pending a second viewing.
Okay. I mean,
and
this is totally arbitrary, but I was just going to go around the table. Matt, better, the same, or worse than District 9?
I would have to see it again before I make that judgment call.
Okay,
But I would
that's fair.
gut instinct. I would say slightly less good.
Okay.
Just because District 9 is great. I loved it.
It is. Tiny?
Yeah, I would have to say overall, just an overall opinion of it, I'd have to say slightly less good, kind of what Matt said. But again, yeah, I need to see it again. It would just depend. But just overall, just slightly less good.
Gotcha. And for me, District 9, overwhelmingly out on top. I love that movie. That is a near perfect movie as far as I'm concerned.
It's amazing.
Nice.
I love it.
But Matt, you were on a thought. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that I also think that everyone should see it because I mean it's a great movie and apparently it didn't do that well at the box office, and I just think that good sci-fi is kind of hard to come by, and this year is very, very much a great year for sci-fi, at least in terms of volume or quantity. That just support good sci-fi because it's a good genre that kind of gets a bad rep sometimes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When it's bad, and when it's good, it's really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, you know what though? Even for us sci-fi nerds, when it's bad, it's all right.
Yeah, it's still okay.
True.
Yeah. So, all right. So I listen to Slightly Sauced, this podcast for a bunch of Canadians get together every week and they talk about just general stuff, just like topics of interest and all that. It's a really fun podcast. You guys should check it out. It's at slightlysauce.com. But they've done a couple episodes where they just basically answer. They basically take Yahoo Answers questions and they just kind of talk about them and answer them. So I figured maybe we could try that this week on here.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So
cool.
I have some kind of loaded up. The first one is, why did they change it to Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone?
Rather than the Philosopher's Stone?
Yeah, which I have, it was just to make it more accessible to American audiences, because I guess philosopher has different connotations across the pond. Yeah. But I just get the feeling like there's a different... it's because they feel like Americans are too stupid. Like, they'll be like, oh, philosophy, I don't want to do that. Yeah. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on it.
And isn't the Philosopher's Stone, isn't that like part of basically like alchemical legend sort of?
Yeah.
Like it was a literal stone from the time of alchemy before modern chemistry.
Yeah.
It was an actual, and that's in modern, alchemy has no basis in the United States, but people from Europe would probably understand it. So
sure.
Right.
It makes sense.
Yeah, so there's your answer, person from Yahoo Answers.
Right. America's too young. That's the answer.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, America's too young.
There you go. My dad would say, why does Harry Potter talk funny?
That's awesome.
If you want to be technical, he talks properly.
Yeah, well, because of xenophobia, Dad, that's why.
Nice.
Thanks.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
The next question, this made me chuckle a little bit, because it seems like Yahoo Answers is populated by a lot of like teenagers and young people.
Sure.
But this one is, if someone over 21 buys you tickets to see an R-rated movie, can you see it without them? Which, this is a question that I've asked before when I was a kid. The answer is no, because that's just no.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was you had to be 18, right? Not 20.
Oh yeah, you have to be 18, but you need to be. Well, I mean,
accompanied by. Now I know that.
You need to be
rated
by.
X movies. That is the case. Rated X, you can't even see them. Not that there are rated X movies anymore.
Right,
but
like
you have
NC-17.
to be 18 to see it.
Yeah,
You're right. NC-17. You're right.
Right.
You can't. No matter what, you can't see it.
Yeah, but what they're asking is if like say it's like a 14 or 13-year-old
and then
kid,
somebody buys it and says, "See you later. I'll pick you up after the show."
Yeah. Right. Like you could probably buy advance tickets and then go and do it that way. Uh-huh. That's probably what you can do. Maybe that's what they're referring to, because they're not gonna card you at the ticket taking stand or whatever.
Right.
But I'm just saying, it's not legally. I mean, you have to be anyone under 18 needs to be accompanied by an adult.
Gotcha.
That's my understanding,
Right.
at least. What is your guys' take on it?
I
think you're right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess that sounds right. I just figured, like, if a parent was there and said, "I'm buying this ticket for my child, but I'm not seeing it," then they'll let it happen. They'll let it go.
Yeah, it all depends on, honestly, it all depends on the person working.
Right.
Because, I mean, they can be a
Totally.
stickler about it.
Yep.
Like, I can say that if I owned a theater, I wouldn't really care because it's money that goes to my theater. But
Yep.
I think there are, like, standards that need to be, like, legal issues or whatever.
Yep.
Like, in any time that an adult says, like, I'm buying this for this, I mean, like, these days you can just get, like, what are those little kiosks called? Fandango
Box office?
things and
Oh.
stuff. No, like the buy tickets online and
Gotcha.
stuff. So it's probably easier for them to do that, but yeah.
I think it's more about what you can get away with as opposed to what's the actual rule.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been, not to brag or whatever, but like, I just didn't really worry about that much because I've been buying like rated R tickets since I was like 14 or 15. And it's because I'm so freaking huge. I've looked like I was 18 since I was like 13.
Yep. You know what? And I shaved. I shaved when I was in 5th grade, so I was kind of the same deal.
Jeez.
For me too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
For me, I'm just boyishly handsome, so.
That's right.
You
they
are.
still card you.
Yeah, they do, totally.
Yep.
You're an
So-
Adonis.
So I am an Adonis.
Totally.
Ladies.
Lucky guy.
Yeah. This one, I think, this is going to go... I don't know how this is going to play with you two, but I feel like you guys are going to run with this. But Tobey Maguire versus Andrew Garfield.
Oh.
Who do you think made a better Peter Parker / Spider-Man?
Ooh.
You just opened a can of worms.
I
Yeah.
sure
Guy.
did.
Can open. Worms everywhere. Who made a better Peter Parker? I don't know. I think I see Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man better.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker was written better.
Interesting. Okay. Tiny, how about you? I know that you have very strong opinions about Toby.
Yes, I've said before, I hate Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
I hate him.
I don't
And
hate him
so-
that much, but
Okay.
that's fine.
Obviously, I'm very biased, but I think it's Tobey Maguire's performance as Spider-Man and Peter Parker was compounded by the fact that it's Sam Raimi as well, and I don't like Sam Raimi either.
Right.
I won't go so far as to say I hate him because I don't hate him, but I don't like his films. I don't like his style. I'm not a fan.
Okay.
So I'm clearly going with Andrew Garfield being better. But I mean, it's two different characters when you really get down to it. It's Peter Parker and Spider-Man. It's two different
Right.
characters, and
Yep.
I think Tobey Maguire was. I think I'll say Andrew Garfield was better at both roles, but Tobey Maguire was a better Peter Parker than he was a Spider-Man.
Okay.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah,
100%.
I saw him much more as a Peter Parker than Spider-Man.
Yep, totally.
Okay.
Totally.
You know, it brings up an interesting point that, and I'm gonna ask Mike a question about this here in a moment. But
Sure.
back in this was a couple years ago when I was in Vegas. My friend Robert, like we were walking around the mall at Planet Hollywood. I think Planet Hollywood, but and I mentioned something about, I think there was news broke or something. I saw it on Twitter about the Amazing Spider-Man, and I mentioned to Robert, I was like, "Hey, what do you think of Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker?" And I was all pumped for it because I'm a huge fan of Social Network. I thought he was great in Never Let Me Go. He was great in that movie too. So I was really excited, and he brought up an interesting point that he doesn't like the idea of or at the time he didn't. I don't think I've actually heard his take on Amazing Spider-Man, but he's a big comic book nerd, and he doesn't like that Andrew Garfield is kind of like, he seems more like a pretty boy kind of actor, I guess,
Yes.
or he's got more like a model kind of like look to him
is.
or whatever.
And that,
Yeah.
we could get into a whole discussion about how we feel about the movies and how the movies were handled.
Right.
I think that the Amazing Spider-Man was going for that. You know what I mean?
True.
They were going for that he was attractive, but he was just kind of weird, like skater. I don't know. That I didn't like, and I think that's why
Right.
I'm a bit averse to that version of Peter Parker.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know the answer. Neither one of them. I think Donald Glover would have been really good.
Donald Glover?
Totally.
That's my answer,
Totally.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Donald for Spider-Man.
Donald for Spider-Man.
Yep.
Yeah. Next question. This also made me chuckle a little bit. I watched The Conjuring. Now I'm freaked out. That's the question.
Yeah.
But they supplemented it with, I watched The Conjuring today, and it's like 1 a.m., and I'm freaked out. Also, it said it was based on a true story, so that doesn't help. Any tips to become unscared? So, guys, what do you do to become unscared after you see a scary movie?
Read Richard Dawkins.
Nice. Nice.
I love it.
No, but that's, I mean, aside from religion, the real answer, or I guess a nicer answer, is that they are very, very, very dramatized versions of accounts of actual events.
Yes.
Okay? So not only are they movie versions of a true story, the story is a story that somebody told.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's I hate the misnomer or whatever of saying like, oh, it's based on a true story, because it's not based on a true story. It's based on
on something somebody said.
Yeah, it's based on a perception of events that probably they clearly have an explanation.
Totally.
But it's just that perception is just tainted a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, I just hated like the preview for the possession. It was like based on a true story, and then it shows a hand coming out of a little girl's throat. It's like, oh wow, yeah, we're
this
screwed.
actually happened.
Yeah,
there's something I used to do when I was younger, and if it was like a haunted house, and I would look at the story of how it happened, and that house was very specific to that house. So, Yahoo answer user, if your house hasn't been haunted before today, it probably isn't haunted. However, you probably will be stabbed to death tonight.
Yes, probably
by somebody real.
So, yeah. But make sure you tell your friends about the Obsessive Viewer before it happens. Please. Yeah, but and then there was another question that we pretty much covered it already. But is Paranormal Activity a true story? No, it's not.
No, it's did it even purport to be so?
It didn't, and the only reason why people thought that it was because of the found footage thing, which that's such a tired.
Yeah.
Misidentification or misunderstanding of it, because I had the same issue with The Fourth Kind, because there's no way that they're going to show someone getting murdered, and even if it's off screen like in Paranormal Activity or dead body flying on a screen, no, it's not a true story. It didn't happen. And if they're asking if it's dramatization, no. Just no.
No. I liked when it happened the first time with Blair Witch.
Oh yeah, that was.
I
cool,
liked that it was like, did it happen? This is crazy.
Yeah, it was viral. It was. They had. I remember MTV having a like a behind the scenes thing that was a kind of a mockumentary about like, oh yeah, they were disappeared, and I bought into it because I was a kid. But man, it's like
at the time it was great, but it no longer works as a tactic to scare someone. It no longer works, and people should realize that.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that it works for some people, and that's why they keep doing it.
Right.
Well, yeah, because some people are stupid.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
Guys, I have a question. Is Apollo 18, is that a true story?
Oh, totally.
Is that on Yahoo?
No. That was just me being
Yeah, the rocks are aliens.
Nice.
All the moon rocks down in Florida came to life and killed massive people.
Right.
So stupid.
It is. Well, it's much less stupid than what I'm about to say. But at the time of this recording, here in Speedway, they're running or earlier today they ran the MotoGP race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But it's motorcycle races and stuff like that. But downtown Indianapolis was just filled with like motorcycles. Like bikers came and just parked all around downtown. So like I was walking around with my brother, and I just thought like, it would be horrible if this is the night that motorcycles decided to rise up and take out humanity.
Oh my god!
It's so stupid, but
that is really
can only hope.
Yeah. But
awesome.
anyway,
That's awesome.
with The Fourth Kind about about it being a true story. Like for a second, I bought into it just at the beginning, just a little bit, but then I thought it was an interesting use of that format because they intercut between supposed found footage and supposed like actual footage with whatever, the lack for a better word, the dramatization of it that was the actual movie.
Right.
But there was the scene where there was like one of her patients or something was going crazy, and they showed like a split screen of the movie and the supposed found footage thing, and then they show him blow his head off. And I'm like, no, that takes me out of the movie. Like I was all on board with like buying into it. Like I know it's not real, but just pretending that it's real. But that just took me out of the movie because it's like it's not a snuff film.
Totally.
Wow, that didn't take me out of the movie at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they did blur it out. They blurred out the violence. You could not see their actual faces. So.
They did, yeah.
But that's you're. I'm not saying you're wrong. You're totally right. I'm just saying they did that. But it didn't take me out of the movie. It is a dumb movie. I can't defend it, but it scared me.
Yeah, we'll talk more. We'll talk more about it in Shocktober with an episode. We'll kick off Shocktober with an episode about that kind of stuff.
Right.
Next question. This question kind of leads me into a different conversation that we'll get more in depth into this topic at a later date in the podcast. But does Star Wars: The Complete Saga on Blu-ray have the unaltered editions on it? Obviously,
no, it does not.
Obviously, the answer is no. But my follow-up question for that is, Mike, do you think, Mike and Tiny, because you're both Star Wars fans,
sure.
Do you think that now that Disney owns the property, will they ever release it?
Jeez,
I don't know. Disney's so dingy with their releases on stuff.
Yeah, totally.
They are.
Though you know what? It sounds like a vault kind of deal.
I was just thinking that,
yeah,
and I mean, can you imagine the craze that would go into that? I mean, having it released on Blu-ray for the first time and it only being a limited run.
Well, it's the same thing that happened with the DVD.
Thing. Really?
And it was kind of crazy, but not that crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thankful that I have the DVDs that have both versions of the original trilogy. And
go ahead.
I think I've only seen the first one, A New Hope, the remastered one. I think that's the only one I've ever seen, and I've only seen it once because it was an absolute travesty. So I refuse to watch them. So
wow,
you refuse to watch the originals?
No, I refuse to watch the remastered ones.
Remastered. Okay. Here's I unfortunately don't have them because I was one of the ones who bought the 2004 DVD box set like the day it came out, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was another $20 to buy the limited editions, which came with the altered versions. So I didn't want to spend another $20 because I just bought them. Right. And I didn't realize how truly limited they are. They're like $30-something, $35 on eBay now. And so I just haven't gone back to buy them, which is unfortunate because all I have is the VHSs of the unaltered.
Yeah, I've seen your collection of Star Wars videos. It's impressive.
Yeah.
But
of course, the glaring omission is that I don't have the unaltered original trilogy.
Right. I would be willing to bet that come 2015 when Episode 7's coming out, I'm sure that they'll release it. Mm-hmm. I assume that they'll release it in the lead up to that. Because it'll be in the cultural mind or whatever, and it'll
totally. You're right,
Mike. Adding on to that, Mike, do you not like the remastered versions, or does it not bother you?
It doesn't bother me as much.
Okay.
I said before that I'm kind of a latecomer to Star Wars. As big a Star Wars fan as I am, most people I know that are big Star Wars fans found it when they were like 4 or 5. I was probably 10 or 11, you know, which was when the 1997 remastered versions came out. So while I saw them all originally, when I started to get obsessed was the 1997 re-releases.
Okay.
I do hate Hayden Christensen at the end of Jedi.
Yeah,
that's the worst.
Disgusting.
That's easily the most offensive.
I'm not even a big Star Wars fan, and I hate it still.
Yep.
I just hate that more than anything.
Yep.
I hate the fact that basically what they did is they said, okay, back in 1977. All these people did all this really great, groundbreaking work.
Right.
But now that we have the technology, we're just going to absolutely get rid of all that work that they did, that art that they made, and we're going to replace it with this that we can do now. That's what I hate about it so much.
Yeah. Well, and I'm also a big fan of movies should be indicative of their time. They should be kind of a relic from when this happened. You know, if you put a new sheen on it and you make it a little brighter so you can see it because it's grainy, that's okay. You know, but when you literally change things that people did and you affect things that people did, that's a problem. I agree with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, can you imagine being like one of the puppeteers of the creatures that they made for like
of Yoda,
the movies?
I think Frank Oz doesn't have a problem with it.
But I mean, like, I remember one of my first experiences with Star Wars is the VHSs, obviously, and they had like a special at the end of the movie, or like it may have been before it, but it was George Lucas and some of the puppeteers talking about all the work they did, and they showed, like, one of the ones that really impressed me was I don't know if the creature has a name, I'm sure it does, but it's the creature that, like, sings in the cantina.
Max Rebo Band?
Yeah. And like in the remastered ones, they're totally digitally done, but like I remember them showing that puppet and how there's like 3 guys underneath working, and I was like, man, that is so cool that they did that. It looks awesome. And then, you know, a lot of people now don't even know that there was a puppet originally because they just digitally remastered it and put in a digital version of it. That's it's just terrible. Like, those people put in all that effort to make that. It's a piece of art. That's what it is, and they just glossed over it now with these remastered ones. I think it's egregious.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Agreed.
Rant over.
I just saw another question on Yahoo Answers that I don't know how much play this will get in the conversation of this podcast, but it just irks me so much. Okay, I'll say the question and then I'll give my thoughts on it, and then I'll mention something that me and Mike will probably talk about a little bit. But
do it.
The question is, just saw 007 Thunderball. 2 hours of my life I will never get back. What did you think of it?
Wow.
Okay, they supplemented it with, what did you think of the film? I thought it was terrible. The set pieces linger on too much. I found the soundtrack bizarre, not the normal Bond music, the Thunderball theme, and repetitive. It was very boring and then rushed at the end. Now, my thoughts on Thunderball is that it is awesome. It starts out with Bond fighting a man who has cross-dressed as the widow of him. He's faked his death. Bond is at like his funeral, and he follows like his widow or something, and it's him in drag. And it's just, and then the fight concludes with him being chased and then flying off with a jetpack. It's the ultimate campy Connery era Bond movie, and it was the most influential on Mike Myers and them when they made Austin Powers. And it has a scene with Blofeld convening across a bunch of Spectre agents at a long table, and then he hits a button and they get I think electrocuted and then swept under the floor. I mean, it's amazing. And then, okay, I can understand if you don't like the campy aspect of it, but what struck me about the movie was that it had to have been the most difficult Bond movie to film because there's so much of it that takes place underwater. I mean, the big climax of the movie is people in scuba suits underwater having a huge battle, and it's with like spear guns and everything. It's amazing, and it's a shame. But tangent over. What do you guys think of Thunderball? And then I'll mention something else, and then we can move on.
Well, I'm not a Bond watcher.
Right.
At all. Bond is I don't know, I guess it's not something I ever got into, or maybe it's not for me. I've only seen one. And that's GoldenEye.
Wow, you haven't watched any of the Daniel Craig ones?
I haven't watched any of the Daniel Craig ones.
Dude.
None of them. GoldenEye, just GoldenEye.
For a non-Bond fan, I feel like the Daniel Craig movies are great that. Oh yeah,
I hear that. I hear that all the time. Yeah. I don't know why they're just so I don't know.
Okay, that's understandable.
I think I've seen Thunderball before, but it's been so long I can't even really comment on it.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's cool. I just wanted to go off on that tangent because, man, that's such a great movie. But the thing I wanted to mention, Mike will remember this. Back freshman year when we were roommates in Evansville, we both took a film class. Mm-hmm. every single week, whenever we finished watching a movie, because the film class would be like, I think it was like one day we'd watch it. Did we have it twice a week or just one night?
No, it was just one, but it was 3 hours long.
Okay, yeah. So we'd watch a movie and then discuss it, or he'd give us the lecture or whatever. I swear, like every single week, it was the guys behind us were like, that's 2 hours of my life I'll never get back.
Yeah.
And it just bugged me so much because, okay, I can understand like if you don't like a movie when you go and see it on your own and everything, but you're in a film class, dude.
Right.
I mean, but that's just one thing that bugs me. I think it's more the kind of condescension in the tone of it. It's kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to completely discredit this entire production. Everyone that was involved with it is just garbage, and they've wasted life from me.
Right. They did it to me.
Yeah, and it's a very kind of borderline narcissistic kind of reaction to it, and I just like it irks me in a profound way.
Okay.
Yeah,
I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that about covers the Yahoo Answers section. I think that went
fun.
pretty well. Yeah.
Like
thank
I'd like
you
to do that
to.
again, yeah.
Oh yeah, thank you to Slightly Sauced for doing that and for doing that on your podcast. And I mean,
Fun
I didn't
fact:
ask for
I'm slightly
permission.
sauced right now.
Are you really?
No,
No, you're a teetotaler.
I am
aren't
a
you?
teetotaler. That's right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, thanks to Slightly Sauce for the idea. Like I said, that's a really good podcast if you want to listen to that, guys. SlightlySauce.com. All right, should we talk about what we're like our last segment of the episode?
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right.
Sounds good. So, as we tend to do at the end of every podcast, we're talking about the things we're looking forward to. Now, that can be coming up in the very near future, something we're going to see, something we're excited to watch, or something that's coming up in a future we need to look at through a telescope. So what kind of things are you guys looking forward to? Matt, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I was going to say Gravity. That's pretty much the only one on my radar right now that I can think of for the near future. It comes out in October.
Mm-hmm.
Alfonso Cuarón. I can't remember if I mentioned that before or not, but just the trailer is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's going to be really cool. I might actually try to see it in IMAX if it's available at the IMAX theater that I go to. Because in the state of Indiana, there's only one like true IMAX theater, and it's in downtown Indianapolis at the State Museum.
Gotcha.
And they only have like 2 screens, and it's kind of So that's pretty much the only one I can think of off the top of my head. And also The World's End, which I've mentioned before, it comes out this weekend.
Yeah,
Nice.
exciting.
Awesome.
It'll probably
Which
be
I'm-
a couple weeks before I see that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to see it this weekend or not. I probably won't, but I'm kind of bummed because they announced that they're going to do screenings of all 3 movies, like a marathon.
Oh, wow.
Across the country. Yeah, and I was like, "Oh, I would totally go to that."
Cool.
All three movies of the Cornetto trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead and The World's End. But I swear, Indiana is like the only state that it doesn't have a showing.
Oh, that's random.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was
That makes
so
sense.
yeah. I was you said it makes sense.
Well, just Indiana's.
Yeah, Indiana is kind of. I can understand that, but I mean, I don't know. They had showings in Idaho and stuff. It's like, come on, Indiana has to be a little higher up on the totem pole than Idaho.
Maybe. We're in the middle.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Not to discredit Idaho or any of our potato farming listeners.
Any of the Idahos.
All right,
Cut that out.
I might.
Anyway, Tiny, what are you looking
Anyway.
forward to seeing in the near or distant future?
Mine will take place in the distant future. It is a film called Transcendence. It's slated to come out in April of 2014. I just learned about it, and so it really caught my attention. The biggest thing about it is it's directed by Wally Pfister, who is Christopher Nolan's longtime cinematographer, and he won an Oscar, I want to say, for Inception. Yeah, it was definitely Inception.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to what he can do. The movie sounds cool. It's about 2 leading computer scientists in the future work toward a goal of something called the technological singularity, which is it's basically where humans infuse themselves with robots and essentially achieve immortality. And then basically it says a radical anti-technology organization fights to prevent them from creating that world. So it sounds pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Who's
in that?
It's got a great cast: Johnny Depp, Kate Mara, Morgan Freeman, Cillian Murphy, Rebecca Hall, Paul Bettany, Cole Hauser, Clifton Collins Jr. It's pretty.
You know what's weird is the odd man out sounds like which one of these does not belong is Johnny Depp.
Sort of, yeah.
He kind of does.
What
yeah,
Johnny Depp are we going to get? I read an article a little while ago about how his last couple of movies haven't done anything, and he's lost himself so deeply and so well in so many roles for so long. I just said the word "so" like 9 times. For so long that we don't know if he can play a straight man anymore.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
It's I don't necessarily look forward to him anymore, but
no,
right.
Neither do I. Totally.
Yeah.
Did either one of you see The Lone Ranger?
No.
Yeah, me neither. I feel like that's
Nobody
not.
did.
Yeah, I feel like that's not an uncommon answer to that question.
Yeah.
No. And I've heard just horrible things about it.
That's a bummer.
Yeah.
Well, I am looking forward to. Mine is in the distant future. In fact, there is not even a date set. But I'm a big horror fan, and I'm getting excited way too early for October and Shocktober, and when we watch our horror movies. And I'm going to tell the story about how I came to be a horror fan because of Jason Voorhees. And so I'm looking forward to the Friday the 13th sequel, I think, to the 2009 Platinum Dunes remake. And I'll tell you why I'm looking forward to it. Although Michael Bay and Platinum Dunes have butchered several of my favorite horror classics in their remakes. Just recently, Paramount Pictures has gotten back the rights to Friday the 13th.
Okay.
Right? Like, they held the rights to the title Friday the 13th, but they sold to New Line Jason Voorhees, the machete, and the story, the movies, right? So everything after Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Goes to Manhattan, was all New Line Cinema. And that's why we got Jason Goes to Hell with the glove at the end. It was called Jason Goes to Hell, and then there was Jason X. They didn't have Friday the 13th in the title because Paramount owned that title. Okay, so then they made Freddy vs. Jason, which was a New Line movie, which was almost just like a Freddy movie featuring Jason. Okay, and then so when they made the remake to Friday the 13th, the 2009 version, Paramount gave Platinum Dunes. It was a big joint venture, so they could use the title Friday the 13th. But after this, just recently, and I read this today, but I think it was news from like July, that Paramount Pictures now has all the rights to both Friday the 13th in name and Friday the 13th in movies, including Jason. So I think they're going to work with Platinum Dunes.
Interesting.
Nice.
Now, what that will produce, I don't know, because I didn't love the 2009 remake, but there's rumors going around that it could take place in snow, and the idea of Jason going around in the snow in a horror movie is just fascinating to me.
That sounds awesome. Like one of my favorite zombie movies is Dead Snow. That's just it's a really cool setting for a horror movie.
Nice.
Also, The Thing.
30 Days of Night.
Totally.
30 Days of Night. Yeah.
30 Days of Night. Yep.
Yeah.
What? Let Me In takes place in the winter.
Yeah. True.
I still haven't seen that.
Yeah. It's good. So I don't know if it'll be fantastic, but I'm looking forward to the idea that it's happening. There's a quote from Brad Fuller, who's a producer of Platinum Dunes. It says, "We are wrapping TMNT and Almanac over the next month." I don't know what Almanac is, but TMNT, of course, is a Ninja Turtles movie. And then it says, "Then we start work on Friday the 13th." So that gets me excited.
Cool.
That's very cool.
What about to finish up? Is there anything you guys saw recently that you'd like to mention?
That's a good question. Oh, I just recently started, or just today before we started recording on a whim, I was working on a thing I'm posting on the site on Monday, which it will be posted by the time you guys listen to this. But I just on Netflix I just played the pilot for It's Always Sunny again, and man, that pilot, I love it so much. The gang gets racist, and it's awesome because it kind of blows my mind that the show's getting into its 9th season. And just going back and watching that, they look so young, and it's so kind of not amateur, but it's kind of cute, grungy kind of thing. I guess,
was simpler. It was simpler.
Simpler, yeah. It's not, the production isn't that big, but yeah, that's pretty much what I've been watching.
Cool.
Tiny, how about you?
Yeah, I could probably talk about this for an hour, but I watched the Great Gatsby, and just hated it so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought it was just horrendous.
That was bad.
One of the greatest, or like one of the biggest offenses that people have been talking about is the music, how it's got the modern music, and ironically that didn't really bother me too much. I think it's because I just hated the rest of the movie so much that it didn't, the music seemed fitting, I guess. And plus some of the music they kind of changed the melody of it. They kept in the lyrics and like the beat, but they kind of changed it to like a jazzy kind of melody, so it sort of worked a little bit better, but it just didn't bother me that much. I will say I am just beyond biased against Tobey Maguire. I think he's just an absolute. I've never liked him ever. I can't stand him so much. I hate him.
That's funny.
I would have
to get into that.
Yeah. So I really hated it so much.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
I saw We're the Millers last night.
Oh, how was that?
It was awesome. It was really hilarious. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It was it ends very sweetly, as you might have expected from a comedy, but it earns it. There's a lot of scenes from the trailer that you've seen that are kind of not as funny because you've seen it a bunch of times, but there are scenes that are not, and they are funny.
Nice.
So it was good. It was really good. I just like Sudeikis more and more, and I'm so glad
I love him.
that he's not on SNL so he can make movies. So
right.
It was good.
He's gonna be great. He has a bright future.
Absolutely.
He's awesome.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I guess that about wraps it up. Thanks for listening, guys. You can, as always, you can find us on Twitter. I'm Matt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter. Tiny is at Obsessive Tiny. And Mike is at I am Mike White. And as usual, you can always check out the website, obsessiveviewer.com. Mike just recently posted a really awesome piece about Dexter and Dexter's final season. I have been very outspoken about my disdain for Dexter, like my dislike of it. But even though I don't like it, like when I was reading it, I was like, I read every word. I'm like, that's awesome. I mean, it's really cool to read it, and I mean, it's kind of a negative opinion about the show, but I was like, that sucks. I felt bad for.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt. That's a heck of a compliment.
Yeah, no problem. So check that out, and then you can definitely like us on Facebook at The Obsessive Viewer, and also you can send us an email at ovpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us anything you want. If we're bored enough, we might throw it on the podcast. Or if you have any topics you want us to cover, any movies you want us to see, anything at all, just send us an email and we'll get back to you and we'll post it on the podcast. So. All right, so until next time, thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.